Hello architects and welcome back to another RPG Architect tutorial. My name is Bert and today we're going to be setting up some more advanced movement for enemies. Specifically, somebody asked to see how you would set up something like in Lufia 2 where as you move around the map the enemies will move, once for every 2 moves you make or twice for every 1 move you make or whatever. Kind of some like advanced dungeon crawler movements. You'll see what we got going on as we go. So I've got a new map here. I've got Mr. Google Gobble entity here. There's not much going on with him. It's basically a start battle command from before when the player and entity touch. I'll set that up before I forget and drives me crazy later. So this is all we have to start. We have our, entity. When you collide with them, it starts a battle. What we need to do is set up a way for him to see if we are moving and then to respond to that movement. Hey everyone, Editor Bert here. I just wanted to jump in real quick and say I'm about to show you how to do something, but there is actually an easier way. I'm gonna leave in my original approach, but then right after that I'll edit in a simpler approach for you, just so you guys can see that there's multiple ways of doing stuff here. All right, back to it. So the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm going to create a new entity up here outside of the map, and we are going to check for interactions of if a virtual key is pressed. There may be cleaner ways of doing this, but this is just how I figured out how to do it, so that's what I'm going to show you. So we're going to do any. What you want to do is set up any, and then we're going to set up 4 virtual keys. So if virtual key left is pressed, if virtual key up is pressed, if virtual key right is pressed, or if virtual key down is pressed. And it's going to check to see if these happen, and if it does, we are going to change a switch. I'm just going to set up a global switch called is moving. We're going to turn that on, so it's default to off, and we're going to turn it on. All right, and then I'm going to put just a little bit of a wait timer here just for pacing in the game. I'm just going to do 200 milliseconds. You can play around with that if you want, but that is our is moving script. I'm going to name it up here, is moving. We're going to call this entity move check. I'm trying to get in the habit of naming all my entities. We're also going to set up a second page. Okay, this second page is going to be not moving, and this is just going to be automatic. And we're going to automatically turn not move or is moving off, okay? So if any of the virtual keys are being pressed, up, left, down, or right, then we are gonna turn is moving on. Otherwise, if none of these are being pressed, that switch is turned off. Does that make sense? Okay, so that method will work, but a much easier, cleaner way of doing this is you can actually do it with one script command. And it occurred to me right after I finished recording that the full tutorial. But anyway, if you come here to data manipulation, save value, go to switch, then go down to input. There is a check to see if the movement input is active, and then you just save that to your is moving switch like before. Change this to automatic, and there you go. That's really all you need. I did it a little bit more complicated, but I figured it wouldn't hurt to leave it in. So whichever approach you want to do, go for it. So now using that switch, we can create a new page on this entity here. So we have our battle start. We'll do a new page. Let's call this one move towards player. And let's change this, instead of new event 23, we'll call it enemy entity 1, sure. Now we are going to set the condition if player is moving. If that is on, we are going to perform a script, and this will be automatic, okay? Now before we set up anything in our script, we're going to go into local data. We're just going to give him one variable. I'm going to call this move cool down, and I'm going to give him a value of 2. This is going to be how many movements the player can make before he gets a turn, right? So if you want it to be longer cooldown, you can play with this value, right? So let's go back to move towards player. We're going to set up a conditional branch, and if local variable move cooldown is not equal to, so the exclamation mark and then the equal sign, if it is not equal to 0, so meaning if it's 1 or 2, then we're going to change the variable of move cooldown. We're going to subtract 1. So we're going to count down to 0. And I'm going to add, again, a little... I have a weight in my example, or my test project. I can't remember if this actually was necessary or not, to be honest with you, but I'm going to throw it in there. So if the move cooldown variable is 1 or 2, then subtract 1 when is moving is on, okay? Otherwise, if it is 0, then we are going to move the entity self. We're going to move him step towards hero, okay? I'm going to hit OK, and I've got wait to complete on. That's how I want it. You don't have to have that on if you want him to be able to move while you're moving or something, but I think it'll work better for the what I'm trying to do. So I'll do that. I'm going to do another wait here. Actually, let me just copy and paste this one. A little bit quicker that way. Copy and paste that. So a little bit of wait, and then if he steps towards the hero once, then we are going to set our variable, our cooldown, back to 2. Okay, does that make sense? Now, this will work, but the thing is that he will start moving towards the player, like even if he was up in the very corner where you couldn't see him, he's going to start booking it towards the player immediately. So what I want to do is I want to set an aggro range. I want him to just be aggroed in this hallway, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new script page. I'm going to call this aggro range. I'm actually going to put it at the beginning of my scripts. And this is going to be if the player and entity touch, then change switch. We're going to set up a local switch. So a local switch, just call it aggro. Default is off, but if the player and the entity touch, turns aggro on. And we only want this page to run if local switch aggro is off, okay? So if the local switch aggro is off, which it starts off as the default, and the player and the entity touch, turn on switch aggro, and then we can come over to our move towards player and we can add that condition to this page. So local switch aggro is on. If aggro is on and if the player is moving, then we're gonna do all this stuff. Otherwise, if the player and entity touch, we're going to start the battle. And then the last thing I want to do is set up my collision sizes. So this is fine, this capsule set up for the move towards player, but we need to set up something bigger for our aggro range and for our battle start. So let's do the aggro range first. I actually found that the box type does work pretty well here because I can really define how I want it to set up. I can have him aggroed in this hallway, but not in this hallway, right? So let's do box. I'm going to set the width to 12, and I'm going to set the depth to 3. And then for the battle start, I want him to be able to trigger the battle when I'm standing next to him, like if you're standing on a tile next to him. So it needs to be, basically it needs to be more than 1. So I'm actually going to use just for simplicity's sake, I'm going to use a sphere collider for the battle start script, okay? And I'm going to set it to be 1.5. That should be plenty. So everything makes sense. We have the aggro range script. Condition is aggro switches off, player and entity touch, and then it turns the switch on, which sets us to one of these two pages. If the player and the entity touch within like basically 1 tile space, then we'll start the battle. Otherwise, the enemy is going to be moving towards the player whenever he has his movement cooldown is at the value of 0. If it is 0, then he can move. Otherwise, it's going to be counting down automatically. okay? And one last thing, let's make sure on all 3 pages we're going to set ignore entity collision and register ignored collision. Okay, so that we can walk into these collider boxes. Set it on all 3, ignore collision so you can walk into them, but also register the script, okay? Alright, so let's give it a run and see if that works. Okay, so you can see our collision box. We're gonna move around. The enemy is not active. We're just moving around having a good old time, but as soon as we enter, you see now it's just around here. So if we touch this bounding box, this collision, we will trigger the battle. But if I walk up and down, that's 2 steps. Up and down, another 2 steps. Left and right, another 2 steps. Right and left. And there we go. Triggered a battle. So yeah, that works. Our battle commands are not here. It's been a while since I've jumped into the battle system, so it's something's misfiring. So something's misfiring there. That's okay. It's been like well over a year since I messed with the battle system here, but we will be jumping into that very soon. Trust me. So hopefully that helped. Hopefully that made sense. You're basically just setting up a switch. Tracking to see if the player is moving, and then you know, setting up enemy movement based upon that. And then also you can always just copy and paste this guy and then adjust the collision box or the aggro box I should say, for this new entity if you want to really customize your dungeon crawling experience. So if I do that, and then let me set him right here actually, show you how that works out. There we go. So you can see he's got if you walk into this box, it'll aggro him. If you walk down there, it'll aggro him. Very cool. And it really wasn't that hard to set up, so hopefully that helped. If you guys enjoyed, please be sure to leave a like, a comment, and subscribe. It helps out the channel a lot. If you've enjoyed your time with RPG Architect, if you're excited to use it, or you've been using it a lot and you're loving it, then let us know on Steam. Leave a review. It really does help out a ton. So yeah, we appreciate all the feedback. And again, if there's anything that you'd like to see out of the engine, you can click this help button and hit leave feedback. It'll take you to a little survey. It's on my other screen. You can go to this survey here and leave some feedback. Let us know some things you'd like to see, some problems you may be having, or all the good things you may be experiencing. Whatever you'd like to let us know here. It's all anonymous, so feel free to share your mind. Okay? All right, and if you've enjoyed my commentary, my tutorials, and you would like to support me personally further, then you can do so over at patreon.com/bitbybitsound. You get a ton of music to use in your projects for your game. Royalty-free, good stuff, and it's much appreciated. So, as always, you have been amazing. I have been Bert, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.